Yeah, shows perspective, depth. Yeah.
Or you could do that, or you could do something.
Which corners would be
I don't want it to move left or right, so I just want to use the Y.
how we change the line.
Using.
Yeah, so it's right there.
Set Y. Or change Y. Put a drag in there. Change. Onto that.
You have to initialize back to. Screen.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was.
Okay.
We
Right. So am I allowed to look at the? Well, I'm not supposed to look at the scenario. He's supposed to look at the scenario.
Right, so now he's a student now, he's gonna narrate his, you would like.
Okay.
Oh, on the
So I
second.
wanted to.
Same project.
Change Y.
Oh, you're looking at second one, right?
It's interesting that in the environment, you can do virtually the whole thing without having. a whole lot of-
I don't.
That's true, yeah, it's, I mean, it is like a very early.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you can do it simplistically, but you can make it complicated.
Yeah, he's right.
Which is great for the kids. that-
Well, because when I first described it, how am I looking at that, and then I realized that you can experiment. The tools you have.
Yeah, it's very like get to know snap and just weird specific things. But the kids that get it, you kind of like add and add and add.
You might have to sort of kids through, you're operating and you explain what an event-driven environment. Is the point of making it,
Right.
so. To me, it did, because I learned it.
I mean, yeah, kids, so they probably don't even know.
Yeah.
But it is just a feature that is very event-driven.
That's me. And then can I copy this block or do I drag it another way? What do you want to?
You want to put through those. But that's not what's the problem, that's not what the issue, let's say for this one. So that's not confusing. If it says it remains in C, then you switch it back to B.
So 100 times it will change Y by 1. So then that represents minus 1. But I don't know the dots. Yeah, it's like. Stop. Yeah. Problems. Yeah. It's gone. One page. What is my word? No. Okay, so it's that is. Oh, I did lose it all. At least I know this time what I want to do.
Okay, I think I know what I'm saying.
Reset all the rights.
But it's still interesting. Right there. What console they run that, and when I walk, it switches speed. It stays like that forever. So I can't. That's switching, so. So it's not doing this, it does it a little bit there. So it's the same. He just moves.
How would you change? How would you change the CD?
There we go.
Got a cost.
That's what I wanted. Jumps up, and it goes back down.
What kind of costumes do you have?
So now it's floating away. What? It's disappeared again.
I know my kids.
Ours keeps going into work.
It's not safe.
Say,
It's not switching to.
I don't know.
the other person, with the issues like that, get the team. So you could do those, have them submit to you.
Yeah.
Because I can't.
That way,
switch
you can
Not
do
to
that.
And it's a great device.
Yeah, I mean, I have to start along.
No.
Oh, really?
Is there a recovery? Is my kids basically
I know they have it.
You don't stay or you lose one.
Yeah, basically. I have this strong compulsion.
Yes, I'm not sure exactly how I put the.
I guess they make that.
Yes, so that's why I just say.
I don't want to switch.
What kind of ways do you
That's a good way to.
way to?
So I tried that. Switch to be switched to C, but I have to say.
You have to.
I took
How can you do that?
Even though they're.
Have you seen anything?
They're methods. I'll just hit it out later. It lines your code, runs the tests. And raise it.
Put into maybe
Yeah.
slow it down so it actually
You can tell them.
Well, if you're getting stuck on it, it's possible if we want to go on.
Okay, well, how much do I use the variable for?
Well, no,
I realize
you
that.
can be too,
You go to have
some way. Our way to display the two costumes as you move to it, right? So right now you have, I mean, watch trace through the log. You get two halves right here. So what happens when you're right?
Right, and then tell them to switch to the cusp. You know, when I switch to the beat here. I switch to the beat and then, yeah, he just takes one step and then he stays that way.
This is not Flash, what is it? That is actually presented.
So I move him to,
Oh, really?
like, keep switching back and forth.
Yeah.
I think, I'm pretty sure that's what they're.
Sorry, we can do it.
You didn't know what the state was before. Is
Right.
is there any, thing under looks that you might be doing?
All right, well anyways, I'll just, retain the practice. The project administrator is going to be there.
These variables, then switch it down.
Right.
Oh, you display one,
Right.
the first one, and then after you display, you switch to the next one, and the next one.
Right, yeah, so it's in, you got.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that was, I thought that there might be something.
Yeah, no, it says basically using variable.
The other thing,
This is what I'm going to get.
Yeah. yeah, there's a different way to know what's behind them. Create a list, two things, and you just have to swap the list.
Yeah, so you can just set.
Yeah, I just set
there.
it.
So they've got to create a variable. This is
Or the downsides of
This is work.
So where is your?
Oh, it drags something there.
So that section is, it's telling you.
That's the problem. I don't know.
Where are the classes?
Richard, is there that new function in Snails?
Yeah.
Where?
That's Daisy. Because I've accidentally done the delete. Oh, it's like, oh my God.
You gotta save all the time or something.
Yes, you disable all the time, you accidentally like drop something, and then it's like,
Where is it?
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the like more frustrating things that students will do all the time kind of thing.
Example. So this is.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because they don't want to store it in on the stack. Yeah.
So
What's interesting, like, on the last problem, because there were multiple ways you can go to problem.
Well, yeah, that's also tricky sometimes is kids actually aren't wrong, but you're just like, I never thought, so you're like looking at it and you're like, what are you doing? What are you trying to do? And then they're like, and then you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. That's a valid approach, hold on. Like, so part of it is just like getting to the bottom of that sometimes. Seems like they're totally wrong, but actually like, you know, closer. Yeah.
So are there more costumes available someplace? For download? You just have to, once you look at
You can essentially, you can import any image.
how are we trying?
So a lot of, I mean, that's
Lots of you have to resize it to be.
right. Like I know some teams have done things where they've just like pulled ones they like and like given them to kids somehow. Wanna like do that.
That's what I figured. It's the same time that we need a graphics artist.
Right. And especially like kids that really don't want to. Like some kids think that's really cool, they want to go, I can be creative. But since you've already done it, you should have it color. You can't just use one.
We're not writing, well, we're not writing out any it's but I just need this loop here. This is the first line, is around the number.
I'm an art.
And then now it's one.
What's predicting? Or, what's one year?
Oh, the,
Second line.
So rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, yeah.
Generates another
That
random.
one's a good one.
But is that hard? They turned out to be surprisingly easy. I thought it was, I had, all these, like, well, it has to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right, these kids don't have any programming background, so.
Yeah, I was teaching also kind of a development technique or anything, or is that really something for the next class? We just to do this, start, what I did is I just started with small first. It's like, well, get Mario or whatever. Get it, that's ready. Let's get that one, then get two of them, one of us right by itself and not have to do it. And just write one at a time and rather than doing three.
You'll probably have to give them that step. In theory, that's what they should do, but you'll, as a provider, probably just want to tell them, like, do this first, then do this, then do this, then do this. Right.
Make something that walks along.
Yeah, because they, I mean, eventually you might say like, hey, now that we're on project 30, why don't you generate something? But in the beginning, they probably are just, I don't know where to start. Let me try to implement all of these things at one time. So you have to take that time.
We want to introduce some concept of test. Or at least testing everything.
I would say like introduce the idea without instruction. Like you might just say, it is a good idea to test. And every time you do this, like test it. Every time you add a block, make sure it's set. And then there's some blocks you can use for testing, like the save block, or like these variable printing things. So you might just show them like you're stuck on this, use this, use tools and stuff. The rigid structure of like how to generate these things is probably like way beyond.
We're talking about arrays, what's the first number we use to start? Is it 1?
That's true, this is
0.
Yeah.
This is so different from the introduction.
Right. So we use 0
When I was in high school,
like,
well,
6.
Yeah, so I could use your.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Much more painful to be honest.
Well, it's simple.
You're actually easy.
I don't
You have to worry about
Some of
it.
the,
On the other hand, it's more complicated because there was no
Question now is.
Right. You can write it really ugly looking code.
It's the first time I lived in C, which was in page I really like it. I mean, now I really like it, but
you know, the file under
time
library, or custom.
I did, as far as we got the AP test will still be in
A
Java.
lot of.
it is, yeah, I mean, it is for this year.
Gonna be Java or Python.
They haven't made a ton of indication that they are changing it, which is interesting. They were working on building a second AP course, about kind of model on this stuff. So that's like the current focus, so I don't expect to get any other things in at least until next week. Just like 2017. And then maybe they'll be sure say what else.
So if we did it, if we did it,
Write this.
So spend 1 minute wrapping up your conversations.
It's just thousands.
Never be one, but it can be
Once we have to.
they work really well to kind of do things. with-
Yeah.
Like I'm ready manager.
Yeah.
Just syntax.
I
Oh, it's nice to be a strong.
Others are
Just when
good.
you get stuff like, front else, this one does it all. Ah!
Yeah.
Because it's not, it doesn't include one.
This is
So if you want to go to that, it's already.
You have a.
One, two.
I did a data one last time. We did it in Pascal.
And so you know, we know that first and second are integers, so you have some stuff.
37 morning.
Yeah, it's
It's almost,
so our results.
and everything was done from the
Slide.
There's a.
So whenever we do
Yes.
probably is the +1, so we should try again.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're.
My kids tell me this is the teacher's lunchroom, so they must provide orange juice and.
They'll probably get percent.
So it's probably bagels and bars.
So if you really wanted to take 1 through 6, which kind of would actually represent with.
Kids hate something.
Right.
Kids have it. That's
Try your teachers.
It's like, whoa, it's just got his voice. It's like it's Jedi mind. You know? It could be anywhere. What are you supposed to do?
2 minutes max.
Well, that's part of the exercise is to be like, wow, that's a short amount of time. For errors like this that are reasonably common. Good?
Yeah, right.
All right, cool, good. So I would love to, clearly that took more than 2 minutes, it was kind of the point. Like I figured it would. But I'd be curious to hear, just like, let me actually, like, let's rank the top around. From like either perspective, what went well and then what was like particularly frustrating or difficult, both as a student or as a teacher?
As a student, I have no idea how to use scan. That's kind of frustrating. So like,
Yeah, that's the big one.
so yeah, if you don't meet something, I'm kind of required to do whatever the assignment is. I'm gonna feel way overwhelmed. Just kind of take up more of your time because now you're gonna have to take pennies.
I agree, that's pretty. And I guess on that note too, certain students may know how to do certain things with like within Snap or something like that, but they may not know, you know, what a certain function or what a certain block, I guess, would actually do. And you're trying to like guide them into it, such that they might not even know that it really exists or reason. Whatever. So it's kind of an interesting thing to kind of say, like, okay, well, kind of you walk around it and you're trying to lead them towards this idea, but it could also help. It's one of those things. It's like, well, does this person, if this person doesn't understand it, does the rest of the class know that this block exists or so? And I guess on that point, it could be a beneficial thing, probably like a group thing to show everyone, like, hey, this is this block that's, you know.
Yeah. I would definitely say if you hear the same question or the same misconception like 2 or 3 times, you might just want to be like, well, like, hold on, everyone, like, come back, quick example, like, here's what this block, like, a lot of people are doing this, but you might want to try this block, or like, this block does this, or whatever it is. So that's, yeah, one of the important things about getting around enough kids is that you can get a good pulse on, like, ooh, nobody understands this thing, like, I need to backtrack. Any other sort of, like, reflections or things that you realize as a result of doing this, or like notice?
It's really hard to ask questions and kind of lead them to the right answer. Because you just want to go, it's right there. So you want to strike it down, you know. But you're like, oh, is there anything on board? Is it, you know, yeah.
Oh, yeah, look for solutions.
Yeah, I think in programming in general, there's multiple ways to solve the same problem. So, you know, part of it is my answer might be a better way to do it, but their answer is perfectly acceptable.
Right. And yeah, we were actually just like randomly just talking about this too. Sometimes kids are doing something that is actually reasonably close to correct. You just didn't think about it. And so you're like, what are you doing? And then it's like, oh, that does make sense. Like I see, like I was leading you in this direction, but actually like you're much closer here. So it's a little bit of just like trying to figure out where they're coming from too. Anything that worked really well? Like, did anyone come across a strategy or like a thing that you tried that was like, like that really helps, like help students get it, or like anything that?
I think walking them through line by line, right? Just that's like a good place to start. Just show me line by line what happens. Walk through this with me. Tell me everything that happens, and then when you run across the spot where their error is, they might even have that aha moment right there. It's like, oh, you know what? I just saw it just happen. If not, then at least you've got them explaining their method to you. Then you can try to.
Yeah, I think that worked well for them to identify the root cause.
Yeah,
but then
it's happening
what do I do
here.
to
Because you can
solve
get them
it?
that far, right? All right, I got this block and this block. Oh, it's happening right here. Okay, well, what's happening in there?
Right. This is a weird technique, but I've seen classes do this thing where they will give students like there's a thing in the classroom, like a rubber duck, for example, and they'll be like, if you're stuck, like go up to the rubber duck and like hold it, and out loud, like explain to it line by line what you're supposed to do. Or like, and it's weird, but it's like, they just need to say, like, you don't have to be there, honestly. That's a time period when you know what the problem is, and you're listening to them tell it to you, but it's monopolizing your time. So if you can get them to go through the process in a way that feels comfortable, of like explaining to their coach this other thing, and then they'll be like, like, that's the problem. And then you can be like, once you figure out where it is, tell me, and then I'll help you.
This has happened to me 100 times. I start explaining the problem to somebody, like, oh, wait, never mind. We got it.
Right, and it will happen to them too, so if that's a place you can have them do it without you having to be involved. That's a way to save some time.
That's why I like voicemail. I get the call back 2 minutes later. Never mind.
Thanks for your help.
Anything else that works
Give the
well?
kids a bunch of erasers with a smiley face.
Yeah, there you go.
Talk
It's
to your
like, all right, guys,
eraser.
like, talk to your eraser, and it's like, you're very serious, like, we're gonna talk to your eraser now. And they're like, okay, this is good, thanks.
Those other students are really good. I want to talk to them.
When you're finished with the duck, then you're back.
Like, I have a duck in my office, this is what I do, this is what we do. They'll be like, okay.
That's all I got.
Weird, but, you know.
It's like computer science and they made it talk to a rubber duck.
You just gotta sell it.
First. Think about the duck and Lily.
Think about it for a while. Any other like good strategies or things that work well?
What would your problem with that talk back?
Well, that's the best part. That was not bad.
Let me get the big eraser and says big.
Cool. All right. So one thing I would definitely challenge you to do is try to think about how you can just like get better at optimizing the questions you're asking, and where you cannot be involved, but have them still go through the process. I think that's probably the hardest part. But the other important thing about this is what you're doing in addition to helping the student is you're also collecting data, and you're like, okay, they're getting this, not getting this. So one thing you want to make sure you do is that you are keeping notes in some way on their progress. So either like mental notes, physical notes, but like noting that, you know, that kid struggled with for loops. So like, great, what am I going to do in the future? Am I going to call on that kid next time I talk about for loops to make sure that he gets it? Am I going to assign a homework assignment about this because I noticed that tons of kids didn't understand it? So it's partly like helping the kid, but it's also for you to collect data, and that's something that you want to be doing whenever you talk to a student. Cool. The next thing we're going to talk about is the first day of school, but I would love to know if you have any questions about like this lab facilitating process.
Just make sure you're aware of all the tools you're supposed to be, or they're supposed to be expected to use to solve the lab successfully. I don't think you want them to have to scavenger, but the utility requirements one law. They're supposed to use it.
Yeah, the other thing is, yeah, if you are not prepped on the lab, sometimes you can really get caught in a situation where you're like, what? You're like, I'm trying to answer this question, but it's very obvious that I don't actually know how to do it. So it would be good to just like, sometimes it's like, oh, I can figure it out on the fly, but make sure you at least know like the key details so you can answer them. Great. Who is this? This is probably worth talking about quickly. These are like TEALS tips on lab that have been aggregated, just like things that have worked well. So one is playing music. A lot of times people will play music during lab time. And it's a cool like vibe. It gets kids like focused and they work and stuff like that. And it's like gets over the barrier of like the weird silence. Everyone's quiet and typing and eerie. So if you play music, there's like background noise, so people feel comfortable like talking a little bit, asking questions, working.
So not like Jeopardy music.
Really intense, stressful music also works.
Not Twilight, not Twilight.
I think really commonly people play like instrumental versions of popular songs. I think there's a Pandorization of that nature.
Like
so.
elevator music?
Yeah, well,
We don't
sort
want
of.
to
I mean,
style.
yeah, kind of like background, like, all right, I can hear this, but I don't have to listen to the words. Having clear expectations, which we've talked about. Red cups is kind of cool. Sometimes if you want to keep track of who needs help, instead of having hand raises, they give kids a red cup, and they put it upside down on their computer or like on their lab station when they need help, and so that you can like prioritize these are the kids that need help, I'll get around to you, as opposed to just like having a million kids with their hand raised for only 15 minutes. The other thing that people sometimes do is ask kids to write their name on the board if they need help, and they end up forming a queue, and then you can kind of like go through and cross them off as you get to it, and that way kids can't like monopolize it as much. Like if they just ask you for help, they got to go back to the bottom of the list, or like they can't put their name down a million times. So that's a strategy. These last couple ones are about having other people besides yourself be able to help. So one rule that people have sometimes is that you have to ask 2 other students before you ask the teacher. So it's like ask 2 other people your question before you come to me. Another one is like you have to have looked at your notes first, and when they ask you for help, the first thing you would say is, did you look at your notes? So they'll start to get this habit of like, okay, let me try and be self-sufficient before I ask. Or if you have students like if you just explained to this student the same exact error that someone else is having, you can go up to that kid and be like, hey, I just told you, can you like help this student? Or if you have a kid that's like done early, you might say like, hey, would you mind going around to these kids that have red cups and like help be a TA and answer their questions? And so there's some ways that you can utilize like other folks as well to minimize your time helping everybody. It's also a good time to do notebook checks or like grade projects or like, ask kids to explain something. So if you want to like, you think people are cheating, a lot of times it's a good time to be like, hey, can you explain to me really quick how this works? Or if you want to like do a quick completion grade on something, you can just say, all right, during lab, like everyone open your notes to this page, I'm just going to check that you did it. And that doesn't like take up class time. Yeah, questions on lab. Great. All right, cool. So we have about 15 minutes, which is good. Should talk about the first day of school. So this is a sample of what the first day of school might look like. But I think almost everybody here will have had the first day before the next time we meet. So kind of exciting, something to think about. Generally, in most classes, I think the point of the first day is to like get logistical things set up and have kids be like somewhat excited about what they're about to do. And particularly in computer science, I think you want to get them excited and not alienate anybody. So like there are going to be kids that are skeptical about this class, and if you can get them off on the right foot of like, okay, I might be interested, then you win. But it's a little bit scary too that you might turn someone away really quick. Like they might be like, ooh, I'm skeptical about this, it's as bad as I thought. I'm getting out. And those are like the ones we don't want to lose. So this is a sample of like a 50-minute first day at school. And so as soon as kids come in, like you might have them take a survey. I overheard people say things like, I'm curious to learn more about like why kids are taking this class or their previous background or whatever it is. This is a place where you can ask it. Come up with a quick survey. It could be anonymous or it doesn't matter. And then you can have them answer some of those questions so that you have like quick data on that.
Like, one of the things I do for any class I've ever taught would be to just poll your audience, right? See, okay, how many people have written anything? How many changed CSS on their Twitter profile? How many people have written a little bit of HTML to try and engage your audience? Are you saying you'd rather we should do it as a written thing?
Well, it depends. Sometimes students
They may not want to volunteer.
They might not want to volunteer. They might feel weird pressure if they notice that everyone has already done something before they have it. Or opposite, they're the only one and they're like, weird, like, should I be in this class? I think the particular fears of computer science when people realize that everyone else has done it before and they haven't. They're like, I knew it. Like these kids are like nerds about computer science. I should be in this class. So that's kind of why you might have to write it down instead. You might ask also things like in your spare time, or like something, little nuggets that you can then like incorporate into your class later.
So you're doing this, you write it down and just hand it in?
Yeah, you might.
Okay.
And you might be like your warm-up activities, like come in. It's also good, like they have something to do right when they get in. It's first day of school, first period, first day of school. They're gonna be like, hey friend, what'd you do all summer? Like I haven't seen you. Let's catch up for 20 minutes. So if you give them something to like do right away, it's gonna be easier for you to start. Because yeah, you guys get them like first like walked in fresh. So yeah, focusing them is like a good idea. There might be like particular, so after you do that, there might be some procedures you want to go over that are like essential to talk about right away, like how do you go to the bathroom, how do you walk into the classroom. So you might say like, okay, every time you walk into the classroom, there will be a thing on the board that you have to do. For example, today it was a survey, so like expect that every day, and then we'll be like, okay, got it. If you do that, go to the bathroom, do this. Your teacher, classroom teacher, might have advice on like other procedures you have to talk about. When I was teaching, we had to talk about the code of conduct, and same in every classroom, it was like on the wall, and we had to talk about it. So that could be something that you like slot in right here. You probably want to spend some time introducing yourself, and like maybe talking a bit about TEALS or like why you're here. They're not. This is the only class they're going to have with like lots of instructors, so clearing that up ahead of time. If you have anything cool you can share, like if you want to demo something from work or like show something about like what it is that you do, this might be a good place to do that. After that, you could do something to like get to know kids, so some kind of name-related thing, or an icebreaker or something, so that you can like start to learn names and they can start to learn your names and things like that. And then this is like I think the most important part, arguably, like something that introduces the idea of computer science and gets kids like really stoked about like what they're about to do. So you could show like demos of the projects that they're gonna learn and say like, you're gonna build all these cool things. Or you might show like code.org has got a video with like Chris Bosch in it and various famous people about like why computer science is important. You could show that. In intro in particular, you could do the hour of code or like part of the hour of code, which is like a pretty step-by-step tutorial where they build this like Angry Birds thing. And that might just be like, great, you already wrote like, it even tells you like, you wrote this many lines of code. And so it could be like, let's do this hour of code thing, and after like 20 minutes, you've already started to write computer science. It's just the beginning. Or, you know, something kind of exciting, fun. The big caution I would say is to not alienate. So if you're talking about applications of computer science, talk about all of the applications of computer science. So like, if you're talking about gaming, also mention like medicine and simulations and I don't know, like economics and like all the different possible things so that kids don't think that computer science is just that one thing. Yeah, and then at the end you might do like a syllabus or something. Although I've read in a couple places that you maybe shouldn't even talk about the syllabus on the first day because it's just not, it's like, if they're excited, then on day 2 you could be like, great, now that you're excited, here's like the things that you can do this semester. So that's like one of the things I wouldn't be like super concerned about. Like,
oh, you wrap them up for the first day, and then the next day they come in and they're ready to. Oh no, this is actually what we're going to do.
well, it's kind of like that though. But then they're already like, you start on day 1 with the syllabus, they're like, ooh, this is terrible. Like, so.
Yeah, at least you get it right there.
It's yeah. I mean, and I always taught the syllabus on the first day, but I've just been reading some things that suggest otherwise. So that's like an option, or at least like towards the end of the day, or like as a smaller, less major part of like what you're doing.
Full reading.
Right. Also, alternatively, yeah, like assigning homework on the first day is like another tricky thing. But the other thing to plan for is that the kids in your class on day 1 may not be in your class on day 7, because there's like a lot of shuffle at the beginning. So covering like really, really integral computer science concepts and stuff like in the very beginning might not be the best unless you have a plan for catching up the kids that show up in week 2. So yeah, this is just a sample, but any sort of like general questions about the first day of school?
The syllabus. Where does that come from?
Well, you generate it, and it sort of depends on like, it's very school specific, I would say, about what you're supposed to say in the syllabus. But it's really just a document that overviews like, this is what the class is, and then like grading policy related things. So like you would share your grading policy in this document, you would share like materials they will need for class.
Office hours if you have.
Yeah, like contact information, like here's how you contacted us. Here's like, mainly that. This is the time of the class, stuff like that. So that's, for intro at least, that's probably all that would go in your syllabus.
Is there a sample online or something?
I
I just hate inventing stuff for the first time.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Is there?
And our teachers, the actual teachers, should have some experience creating a syllabus for the classes they already teach.
Yeah. I mean, I can also share one, but it's like very specific. And so it's sort of hard. But, I mean, I'm happy to.
I'm just trying to figure out what I still have to do versus what maybe the teacher's doing and
Yeah, like I
we're
wouldn't.
jointly doing. That's
They
what I'm
need
trying
to
do.
know, like, you can't hand out a syllabus really without a teacher having looked at it, because that's kind of like, that's kind of like, they're like school-related things that sometimes have to go in it, or like, it's just like very logistical. And so that would be something that I would definitely be like, hey, what, like, do you have one? Sometimes they just have a standard one that they, like, I did, and I would just like change, copy and paste like 1 or 2 things from my course, but a lot of it was like, the school was like, you have to say this, this is your policy, you have to put this in there. So it was like a lot of non-freedom for me. But, yeah, so that's, I guess, what I would say.
Well, they may have something online on their website, right? The school website.
It's possible. A lot of teachers post theirs online.
Has everyone head teacher is one. I don't know if you guys have, you guys are ahead of the curve. All right, I think that's it, 10 days
We got a
left.
second meeting scheduled.
You have a second meeting.
Oh, we got a second meeting scheduled.
I don't know if we're actually going to meet with the teacher in this class.
Just- Yeah, for you guys, you probably, it's gotta be through that meeting.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can look into it, but,
There is a teacher, there is a teacher,
No,
actual
that's-
school
Actually,
teacher, but then there's a coordinator too, who's got those youth here, I think, yeah, since she works with the school, so just kind of.
See, our teacher's art teacher, like a wrestling coach, and all these other things, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
oh, it's called that.
Like that.
PM.
So you got discipline number down already. So the
Yeah,
first
like
example would be like,
before-
I need a volunteer, adult volunteer for my first example about discipline. What's the pat on the floor? You'll find out in a minute.
I mean, I would love to make sure that there is a syllabus out there, and we've got all this stuff worked out, and just point of contact is kind of.
Yeah.
I can make it syllabus
Have you-
hard, but
You have any other staff at the school, the principal or AD or anybody?
they're supposedly the assistant principal.
Yeah, are you not, okay, I can do that, because he's actually,
Because that's what I would go to. If you can't find your teacher, I would go to the AP.
Yeah.
yeah, I thought, okay, I'll make that connection, because he's pretty helpful.
Yeah. He's back from vacation, I think, so that's great.
Yeah, that's the 28th.
I didn't get vacation.
The perks of being a school related stuff.
Right. 3 months.
Other first day of school thoughts?
First week or a couple weeks in school, but, you know, on the basic introduction class, we have some kid who walks in on this first day and the second day, they haven't had anything. And of course, we really don't have a textbook or a source book to tell them to go back to get caught up. So I'm not sure how we're gonna get them caught up, other than sit down with them, go through the material, yeah, but we really can't do that.
Right, well, what you could do, and depending on who, like Gary, for example, the class teacher, could be responsible for catching these students. Because presumably you will have seen it all through one time. And then at that point, that's like the kind of thing a classroom teacher could maybe do, is be like, all right, catch up kids who missed the day.
When they're doing the lab.
Right, because like you guys would maybe be instructing and like, yeah, during lab time, take this kid aside and like walk him through all the concepts that like he's already seen or taught one time fully. So that's like especially if week one, it's like pretty basic stuff. So that might be a good use of like his time.
Now, is the intent, we have 2 teachers, no TAs, and classroom teacher. Is the intent for both the teachers to be there all the time?
It is not.
Okay, that's not.
But Jerry is essentially intending to be a TA because he needs to teach it right after.
Yeah.
So he'll kind of be like a person that can help kids and like be involved in that way. Because he needs to be ready to do it, or like immediately after.
Yeah.
But there might be, you might have a certain day when you're like, oh, we should all come in because we're doing this.
Like first day.
Yeah.
Additional.
Or like alternatively, there might be days when nobody gets to come in because like kids are, you know, doing something that just doesn't require not an input, like taking a quiz or like something.
And with other people, do they alternate days or take certain days of the week or like there's 5 days and
Yeah, most.
like 2, someone takes 2, the other takes 3 days and then swap.
It's, yeah, it's some kind of alternation. A lot of teams will do like 1 week on, 1 week off, or like a couple days on, a couple days off, sort of depending on like people's schedule. I wouldn't do every other, because I think that gets a little bit like too much transition happening.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, we would at least need to have 2 days in a row. So if you don't cover everything, then you easily pick it up.
Right. So like that's common, like 2 days on, 2 days off.
We put it on a block, so we're on it.
So then yeah, you could. I mean, how you split that as a few? You could do
1 week.
1 week of 1 week, or if
So
you
now
wanted
with
every
the
week.
week, the 3 days, are we obligated to do 3 or you say twice?
Well, each individual is supposed to come in twice per week, but you can create a rotation on that 3-day week such that each person is only doing 2 days a week, but there's somebody in class every day, you know? Although sometimes again, teachers could cover a day also, if you can like come up with a way. So, sort of more like figuring out the rotation.
No, just thinking of the school expectation also among us here. And what's the school expectation is, if they have a block, 1 week is 2, 1 week is 3, expecting us to show up on the 3.
I mean, it's a little flexible. I think they would love to have somebody in class every day. You guys are also volunteers, so there's no real, like, everything is like a perk for them. Like, it's all better than what they expected. So if there are days when no one can come in, it's like that's how it's gonna be.
Sure, ask us. I don't know why you guys are doing this.
Right, like they,
What's in it for us? Well, it's sort of altruistic, you know.
they understand that, you know, it's not like they can't require you to come in. They're super excited to have people come in at all, so.
Well, I think about the students more so, because if the teacher cannot provide and he's gonna do arts, like our teacher is an arts teacher, so he's not gonna know the computer is gonna give them arts. So the student now, they have that gap.
Right. Well, I think, yeah, there's a day when no one's gonna be in there and you suspect that, I would plan something that's kind of like self-contained.
Project-based.
Yeah, like maybe they're just working on their project, like Mario checkpoint in class.
Continue
And that's like,
working.
well, they would have been doing it anyway, you know, so. Or like, they're taking a quiz and then they're doing this. Or they could be talking about like computing in society and discussing a reading. And that's something that like the teacher can facilitate. So, that's, yeah.
Have any of the classes done where I've seen, one school what they would do, it was like a math class. They would be, doing stuff like taking notes, and it would be on the projector. It would actually capture the notes that are being taken during the class, and it would post them. So if you missed school that day, you could review the notes that were taken during the class.
Smartboard.
Pretty
So
sweet. I
they
mean,
do it at AOC.
I know like, when I was teaching, I guess, it was like, yeah, I guess I could have done that. When I was teaching, I used to post all the slides
It was a
at least, and I would tell kids who missed a day to just like do that. During lab time, I'd be like, get on the computer and look at the notes first, and then ask me questions. But that's even cool. I mean, video.
I think it was
that.
actually what it was is it would record what you were doing with the pen, and then I think they might have been recording the audio as well. So if the teacher was talking, she was doing notes, it was going on the board, but it was seeing like how you were, where the pen was like almost pen up, pen down, and tracing it. So you would, as she was talking, I think you'd actually see the notes being drawn, so you could listen and watch. And I think that way, if they missed the class, you're like, watch the notes for the class, and
Yeah.
so that way you kind of had a good. If there's only 15 minutes of instruction. So
Right, it is
I don't know if
short,
that was
yeah.
compatible.
I mean, it's pretty cool if you can pull off the technical requirements around it. But I don't know, it depends kind of on what you were doing.
AOC's doing it, so it's in the school districts up here. I just don't know if they're doing it in Canyon.
Yeah, that I don't know, but it is a cool idea.
Sorry. Going back to the first day, I think at least for where we're starting, it's going to be, the first day it's going to be a 90-minute session. Would you suggest fitting in the extra 40 here?
I would-
First and second day class.
Yeah, I mean, in AP, I would like teach something,
Yeah.
almost, because it sets like a really good
At
tone.
least make sure they've got it set up.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Which would take up an additional time, but I mean, just making sure that we're able to take advantage of that entire, like, the block.
Yeah, well, especially because you'll only see them like 2 or 3 times that week. Yeah, I would say like, this is gonna be like 45, 50 minutes, and then they're like, psych, and we're like, good, we're gonna get started. Like, and I think that's okay. And like, for AP, setting a tone of like, we work every day, and here's what it looks like, is probably kind of that thing. Cool, so there are a couple things I want to wrap up with really fast. You guys, some of you at least, I definitely saw keeping notes on like engagement and formative assessment strategies. Is there anybody that wrote down like that noticed 4 or more strategies? Or training. All right, did anybody notice 5 or more?
I don't know how official they are.
All right, 6 or more. Get 6. 7. Shoot, I didn't anticipate a tie. It's a difficult problem. Cool, well, that's excellent. I have a single prize, but you can probably share it.
What's the candy?
So it's actually little sticky notes that you can use to mark pages of things, because people receive the books that they can't write in, and so I was like, that might be a useful thing, if you would like to do that. So there's 3 of them, which you guys can decide how you want to share. But congratulations. That was poor planning on my part. I was like, there's no way somebody will die. The other thing that I want to really end with is, because it's going to be your first day of school, I was just thinking a little bit, and I put together these little like first day of school, like little packages of things to get you started. And so there's really not a lot of stuff, but it's there's a Sharpie and a pen and sticky notes that are very useful. There's also Brecken's, and I'll explain why. I was teaching kids. I hear them say all the time that people were bending over, teachers were bending over to help them, and they had bad breath. And I was like, oh, I hope they don't say that about me. That's interesting. Like, I never thought of it. So, since you're going to be like weird cutting around and talking to every kid multiple times per day, there's some mints in case you're concerned about how you breath. So I will put these next to the water. If you want to go ahead and grab one, and if you like have a teammate that you know you'll see before, well, hopefully you'll see before the end. But if you like know for sure you want to grab one, feel free to do that as well. So that you're at least somewhat more prepared, maybe physically than before. And that's it.
That's you. That's what you're wrong.
Quick
I
question.
think that's all.
Do you guys have any, do you guys want us to say anything about the TEALS related specifically? So like for the first day of school?
There isn't a specific
Or
tag.
like maybe like a video that TEALS puts together for like students to see? Like
Achievement of other students, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, basically you could show that video that we watched in the first session of like other projects that kids are doing. That's not a bad one if you want to say like specifically kids in LA, which is class, who did these projects. I think the code, I mean, really like we don't produce it yet as an organization. I think the code our video is pretty good as like a better intro, but I don't know, we're not too advanced. It would probably be good for them to know that you were part of this program, so they're like, why are there 40 years?
I wasn't sure anything that you guys specifically
Was kids
No, at some point we'll probably send you a survey that you officially need to have made as part of this NSF study, but it won't be on the website. Yeah. That's all. Good luck. Bye, guys.
Next session.
Next session in exactly 2 weeks. At the same place we were last time.
Oh, no.
It's split, so I think the same time as last time as well. One Yeah. Yes. And like after school starts, so we'll probably be a lot of like how to go. And then like strategies based on that.
No, I didn't get an email for this one.
I did not.
So you send one out?
I can, sure, yeah. I kind of did because I was like, it just like, it was like 5 days later, and then I was like, well, it is in the calendar, but yeah, I can definitely send that out for the next one. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for coming.
See you on Monday.
Next session's on the 30th?
16.
So I think the plan, I think it. Is Monday, I'll head out to work, I'm right down the street.
So we did meet with Jeremy today.